Is all yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Okay, I am sharing my screen, so please let me know in the chat if you don't see it for some reason, and I'll try to figure it out. Okay, I don't see any comments in the chat, so I guess everyone can see it. I asked actually people in my Twitter to vote for a number of neural voices that Microsoft has. So if anyone has any idea or you want to vote, you still have an option to vote here in the chat. So please do that. And probably in the middle of my speech, I will tell you the exact number. But yeah, let's start with the session. So let's talk about the speech services that Microsoft provides. It's a part of Cognitive Services Suite. My name is Veronika Kolesnikova. Here you can see my Twitter handle. I'm trying to be active there. You can follow me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. But if you try to find me on LinkedIn, please write a short message so I know who you are, because people are different. And so before we move to the content, let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Veronika Kolesnikova. I am twice Microsoft MVP in AI. I have a master's degree in information technology. I started my career as a quality assurance engineer, and then I moved to development. So I was mostly working with Microsoft technologies like C#, .NET. I love machine learning. I love Xamarin. But recently, I also started working with Node.js and Java and focusing more on services. And my hobbies are dance and traveling and aerial yoga. I just had a class last night. It was super fun. Okay, now let's move to the agenda for next maybe 15 minutes. I have lots of demos, but at the same time, I want to leave time for questions in the end. So I'll start with quick overview of Microsoft Cognitive Services. Then we'll talk about Microsoft Speech Services specifically. I'll mention some information around custom speech services, and then a speech services SDK or speech devices SDK, specifically for devices. And then I'll provide a couple of speech offerings from Google and Amazon just to compare really quickly. And then I have a big demo. So we'll move to the demo and we'll see how many things I can cover. Okay, so what are Microsoft Cognitive Services? Those are so popular. Actually, I started my journey with machine learning and artificial intelligence with Microsoft Cognitive Services. They're super easy to work with. They're really easy to start with. And if you are a beginner in machine learning, if you're interested, if you just want to include some bits and pieces into your applications, definitely Cognitive Services are there for you. In general, Cognitive Services are sets of APIs and SDKs that can be connected to all kinds of applications. So it doesn't matter if you write in applications with Python or you're writing native Android or iOS applications, you can still use Microsoft Cognitive Services, which already have pre-built machine learning models, and those models are available for you through REST API. You just need to get a key and endpoint from Azure, and you can use them wherever you want. They are having really awesome documentation. I'll keep repeating in every presentation that documentation is great, but I truly feel that Microsoft documentation went a long way, and now it's just awesome. They have GitHub accounts with lots of examples there. They have really detailed documentation. It's really easy to start using the documentation, but if you have questions, definitely submit them in Stack Overflow, or if you see something is not working and you know how to fix it. A lot of those services are open source, maybe all of them actually. I don't want to lie there. So if you see something and you know how to fix, definitely try to fix it and send it a PR. So Microsoft will be happy to have your fix there. Okay, so that was just a general overview of cognitive services, and now I want to talk a little more about speech services specifically. Speech services are powered by speech technologies used in products like Cortana and Microsoft Office. So they are well tested. They keep improving them. All those models that are included and built for you, they are updating them all the time. So they're getting bigger and better at recognizing speech, at converting speech, and just altogether they add in languages. They are adding different pronunciation, and yeah, in general it's getting better and better. So definitely follow the news there for speech services. Speech services are widely used in bots. If you want your bot to understand what your users are saying, then definitely speech services is the way to do it. And also, if you have special devices, maybe edge devices, and then also I will mention other devices later, and you want them to support speech recognition, speech conversion, and also speech translation, then definitely use speech services. Before Microsoft actually combined all several services together into one speech services resource. They were a couple of separate services. Here you can see that there was a Bing Speech API, translator speech, custom speech, and custom voice. Now they're all inside speech services. And also, if you are combining speech services with other cognitive services, and it might be tricky to actually figure out the keys and endpoints, and especially if your company has that rotation policy for keys, it might be a little tricky to remember what goes where and how to control it. So there is a way to create just one cognitive services resource on Azure, and then use the keys and endpoints and whatever you need to connect your service to your application. Okay, let's talk about the features. There are three main features inside speech services, and first one is speech to text. As you probably guessed, it converts a speech to text, and then that text can be either translated, saved in the database, it can be processed further. So different reasons why you want to convert speech to text. For example, it might be a little tricky to store voice files or media files with speech, but it's easier to store them as a text. Also, analytics of text is better than speech, although it's getting better. So up to you how you want to use it, but it's a really good feature. As you can see there, it transcribes continuous real-time speech into text. You might have a file with recordings, and you can just upload the file to that service, and it will transcribe whatever you have there. You can also get only one phrase from a user and then process it, or it can be continuously transcription. If you use transcription in Teams, for example, or if I think they also have it in PowerPoint. There is an option to turn it on. So when you are presenting, you have that transcription. It transcribes your speech to text, so it's easier to see and understand. So that is the same speech service they are using inside those applications, and it works pretty good. You can continuously do it. It supports intermediate results and of speech detection, automatic text formatting, and profanity masking. I want to pay extra attention to end of speech detection because the service is not free, and you don't want it to just hang there and continuously listen when no one is speaking. So end of speech detection is really useful. It saves you a couple of dollars here and there. And then another thing that I wanted to mention that you can call a language understanding and intelligence service to derive user intent. Lewis, or language understanding intelligence service, it actually doesn't work with speech. So especially if you're building bots, then you need to convert, you need to grab that speech, you can convert it to text, and then pass the text to Lewis to understand what your user wants, maybe get some entities out of that information, and then, perform some kind of action based on the request, or provide some kind of action, or actually provide some kind of answer to user that is available there. And I also have it in my demo, so definitely stay tuned. Next feature here is text-to-speech. So text-to-speech is converting text into speech, and then you can share that speech with your users just through device, or you can save that speech as a file as a recording, and then you can play it later on if that's what you want in your application. There are several options there, what kind of voices you can use. Microsoft has huge library of different voices with different genders, different dialects, different languages. So when you are building maybe multilingual application, then the pronunciation can be correct based on the language. Microsoft also provides neural text-to-speech voices nearly indistinguishable from human speech. And now, finally, I can tell you what's going on there. I think I got a vote on Twitter. Before I started the presentation, I checked it. Someone said it was between 50 and, no, I think it was between 5 and 50. Not anymore. I actually, when I was preparing for that presentation, I decided to check how many they have now, and it turned out they have 163 voices, neural voices available. They used to have 5 a couple of years ago when I just started working with speech services, but now they have more and more different dialects, different genders. It is just amazing, and those neural voices are really close to how we are speaking. But also they have even bigger library of non-neural voices. Neural voices in some cases might be a little more pricey and a little more resource consuming. So if you don't need that precision, that the the parallel with actual human voices, then you don't have to use those. You can use just so-called regular voices. They're really good. They don't sound too computery. So definitely check it out. They have samples online, so you can check it before implementing. As I mentioned a couple of times already, it offers multiple genders and dialects for different languages. They are also supporting plain text input or speech synthesis markup language, or SSML. SSML is huge. It's pretty much a standard, so it doesn't matter what kind of technology you're using. If you work with Microsoft technologies, or you work with Amazon or Google or any other technologies that you prefer, SSML is pretty much a standard to work with speech. So, okay, and now let's move to translation. It can translate your audio to different languages in near real time. Can also process recorded speech. So the same way as two other features, it can process just one sentence. It can process continuous speech. For example, if you are talking to someone, you're presenting something, it can translate it on the fly, or you can submit recordings of speech, any kind of media files there, and it will be able to translate them. It can provide results as text or synthesized speech. That is really cool. So it depends what you want as output. What's the goal for that translation? Then you can use text or the speech. I remember maybe several years ago, it was really tricky to translate speech. What you had to do, you had to grab that speech and then translate it to text, not translate, but transcribe it to text, and then grab that text, translate it, and then synthesize speech out of it in a different language. So that was really lengthy, time consuming, resource consuming. Now you can skip that text part completely and just translate speech to speech. It is faster, it is more convenient, definitely takes way less resources. Okay, I told you a lot about features that are available out of the box, but there are so many different scenarios that you might need that little customization, or maybe not little, maybe huge customization. It depends on what kind of applications you build in, what kind of customers you are trying to cover with your application. If you want to customize those speech services, there are four main ways how you can customize them. You can customize acoustic model. So for example, if you are building an application that will be used in a really noisy environment, maybe it's in like industrial environment where you have machinery which is really loud and produces really a lot of sounds that you don't need, and they're just interrupting with speech. Then you can customize the acoustic model so it will actually recognize the noise, and it won't pay any attention to noise and will pick only the things that are important. Next one is language model. We all have our little words here and there. It depends on industry. Doctors have their special words that they're using all the time. We developers, we have our own vocabulary. And sometimes out of the box solutions, they don't recognize those words. And in order to actually make the service to understand that specific language, you can customize the language model there. You can add those special words, special maybe abbreviations that you use all the time. And when you are customizing, it will more easily understand what was said, what kind of information was passed, in order to work with it, either translate it or convert it to text. So language model is the way to go for if you have that application which should work for a specific industry or a specific group of people. Next, pronunciation model. You know, we all pronounce different words in a different way, especially if you are building your application for international market. I am not a native English speaker, so you can see I have an accent. I pronounce some words in a certain way. If you want your speech service to understand different pronunciations, you can customize pronunciation model. That actually will make your application more inclusive, and it's always a good way to build applications and build all kinds of machine learning applications and models. They definitely should be inclusive. So definitely make sure that you are thinking about it. You check in out of the box models that they have, and if something is not working as you want and as your customers want, you can always customize it. And the last one, and I think the most fun one, is the voice font. For example, if your company has maybe a mascot or a character whose voice is really popular, and everyone recognizes that voice right away, and you want to use that same voice in your bot, just an example. Or maybe you have an office manager who always picks up the phone, and all the clients, they already know her or him, and you want to use that voice. You can create your custom voice font. So just recently, you got that ability to actually build neural voice and customize it. There are some limitations around it. You definitely need to let those people know that their voices are used, because you know it might be a little tricky. You can just grab people's voices here and there and then use them as you please. So definitely be careful with that. Make sure that is working. I can see there is an example in the chat from Progressive Floss chatbot. Yeah, so that's a good example of voice customization. And now I move into Speech Devices SDK. You can use those SDKs to build IoT solutions. There are a couple of specially created devices that are supporting Speech Devices SDK. Like Microsoft partnered with Rubo. They created a couple of devices. You can get those devices, you can customize them, you can create that wake up word for the devices and just go crazy there. But in general, if you want to use speech services in IoT solutions, maybe on edge devices, then speech services are also available in containers. So definitely check it out if you are interested in that. And now, really quickly, we'll cover Google and Amazon offerings. So, you know, what others are doing, and you can compare and you can choose whatever you want. Google is really good at their version of cognitive services because they name it differently, but their speech services are pretty good. They are competing with Microsoft on several things there. So it's totally up to you which one you prefer, Google or Microsoft. They both are really good. You can check both of them and then decide which one you prefer, but Google also has speech-to-text option. It recognizes 125 languages and variants. It can automatically identify spoken language, which Microsoft can also do, but there are some tricks there. I know they are working on improving this functionality specifically. Then it can return text transcription in real time for short form or long form audio. That's pretty much the same what Microsoft is offering. And then it can automatically transcribe proper nouns and context specific formatting. So they are speech to text functionality is great. I didn't work a lot with offerings from Google or Amazon. I was mostly focusing on Microsoft side of things, but I tried Google's offerings a couple of times myself. They were working great, and there are some tricks here and there, but it's software, and we all are developers, so we know it's never just straightforward. And then another one here is text to speech. You can select from 220 different voices. They also have more than 50 WaveNet voices. Those are similar to Microsoft Neural Voices. So they are mimicking human voices, so definitely check them out. I didn't find the exact number there. I was just so surprised that Microsoft now has so many neural voices. I didn't expect that, so I decided to play that little game and vote and stuff like that. And then also text-to-speech supports any application or device that can send a REST or gRPC. Another functionality or service here is media translation. It was speech translation before, and now they are changing it. So now it's in beta. The last time I checked, I think it was last week, that's what they were offering. They are modifying it, so it is pretty much the same as it was before, but obviously they are adding more functionality and improving because the media translation is very tricky. I already mentioned that before you had to convert it to text and then translate, because the speech translation is not a straightforward process. It is very resource consuming. So the media translation supports more than 100 different languages. It can detect language, and it also can scale, but as all other cloud solutions, it definitely can scale. Powered by Google's AutoML and transfer learning, integrated with Google devices. You can customize your models there. So definitely check it out if you are interested. And now, really quickly, we'll move to Amazon Speech Services. I tried to use them and I tried to learn more about Amazon Speech Services, but it's a little tricky. I had that feeling that it wasn't up to the standards that Microsoft and Google created. Maybe if you worked with Amazon Speech Services and you had really great experience, you can share with me because I'm definitely interested. I can see two problems. Either they are not that great, I had that feeling, or maybe their documentation is not that great, so I couldn't find enough information about those speech services. but definitely let me know. I'm interested in learning more about Amazon offerings, since now I'm working with several clouds altogether, and I'm just interested in machine learning from different companies and what other companies are doing. So yeah, let me know. But what I found, one of the services that they have is Amazon Transcribe. It can have custom vocabulary. It transcribes speech to text. It can generate timestamp. It can recognize multiple speakers and recognize multiple channels. Multiple channels, that means if you are having, for example, a voice chat, and then someone is accessing it from a phone, someone is accessing through a device, for example, through Alexa or other channels, maybe through their laptop. Amazon Transcribe can recognize those channels. And it can transcribe audio to text in real time. That is always good. And another offering from Amazon is Amazon Poly. It is basically text to speech conversion. They also have natural sounding voices. I didn't find the number of natural sounding voices, and I didn't find any information about that separation between neural or WaveNet voices versus just so-called regular voices. I'm not sure if they have those offerings, and you can customize speech output. You can actually perform real-time streaming with Amazon Poly. So check it out if you are finding something good about it, or you had great experience with Amazon. Definitely let me know. I don't want to confuse anyone and provide any kind of misinformation about the services. I'm always interested in learning more. And now, finally, we can move to demo. In this demo, I'm going to show you Microsoft Speech Services, since that's my main theme of this presentation. And then you can see what's going on there. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I can answer some of them right now. Okay, I think I'll just answer all the questions later on, after I'm done with the demo. Just leave some time. Okay, so what I wanted to show you first is the Azure Portal. Of course, that's the main portal for all Azure fun. And you can see that I created a couple of separate speech services there. But altogether, it's the same thing as you create. As you create any other resource, you just type speech, and then you have a couple of options: speech to text specifically, or speech which can cover everything, all the functionality. So if you are interested, check it out there. You can, if you have them separate, you can go and pick up the endpoint, and then the keys here. There are some setups that need to be done in order to actually connect to those services. But for me, Azure Portal is always the starting point for creating them. And then Microsoft actually created a really cool speech studio, which can serve all your speech-related needs. They have some examples. They have lots of documentation here. They have options to customize. They have links to Microsoft Learn, and I know we have a really good Learn course that will be shared. A link to that course will be shared. And yeah, just that's a good place to start with speech services, this portal. And if you prefer to go directly to Learn module first, or go directly to documentation, definitely do that if that's more convenient for you. But now let me show you the code. I hope you can see it. Let me actually increase the font there. So it's better to see. It is really simple, just console application, and it will perform a couple of things there. One thing that I need to make sure is that when I'm sharing, stop sharing. I forgot to include the computer science sound. So let me do that so you can hear what's going on there. Okay, cool. So now you should be able to not only see it, but also hear when it speaks. And the first one that I want to share with you is integration with LUIS. And for LUIS, you actually need to create your new LUIS application. And I'm going to show you the portal. So LUIS has its own portal where you can create new applications and then train your models, customize them. LUIS is widely used for bots. It's just the go-to cognitive service for bots. So if you haven't checked it, definitely check it out. It's just Lewis.ai, and you can access the portal from there. I created just a translate intent. I added a couple of entities there. So our future bot, or it doesn't have to be a bot, can recognize what word we want to translate and to what language. And then we can actually not only understand the intent, but when we grab those entities there, we can work with them in order to realize what language a user wants to convert to, or some useful information. But now let's go to the code. I included LUIS key, which you actually need to create new application in LUIS portal, and then you need to train your model, and then you need to publish it. And only after it's public, you can grab the keys, and you can grab the region and then create a new config, and then you can use that config here. So what I'm doing here, I am using the config in order to create language understanding model, and not create it from scratch, but just grab the model that I created in that LUIS portal using the ID. So you need three things there from the LUIS portal. And then if you have several intents there, or you have several models available, you can choose a model that or specific intent that you want to connect to your speech service. But I have pretty much just one intent there, so I'll just connect with everything. And then that one was just for testing, so don't pay attention to it. And then I am using the recognizer, and it's intent recognizer from actually speech. So it might not be straightforward that intent recognizer is part of the speech, but it actually is. And then I'm using that recognizer in order to get that speech converted to text, so that I'm getting text from that result. I am actually sending the text to Louis, and then Louis processes it. And if intent match, we are grabbing the entities. We grabbing the text entity and then the target language entity. And then we are converting to that language, which we recognize using Louis. And then we just translating it and then synthesizing the speech, and it will just, speak out. There are tricky parts there that you can use speech services to actually synthesize speech and use text-to-speech functionality. But if you are sure that your customers, they have their speech and languages set up correctly on their devices, then you can just use local setup, so you don't have to call the service a couple of times. It is a little tricky because in most of cases, you don't know what kind of languages are installed. And I don't think that there is a way to figure it out what languages you can access and what was installed on the device. But if you know a trick how to figure it out, definitely share with me. I am interested to know more. I have a couple of languages installed, and I want to show you how that works. So I'm gonna just show you what's going on there in case something goes wrong. Then if speech was recognized but intent wasn't matching, so if your customer said something not related to that intent, then we're just outputting this information. The speech was translated to text, but then we were not able to do anything with it. And then speech couldn't be recognized, and you don't have to implement all those things. I just want to show you what options you have there. And then it can be just canceled, and then you can show the error details. You can log them somewhere else. But since it's just a simple console application, I'm just displaying everything here. So let's actually save this file and just let me show you how it works. Translate mother to Russian.
Мать.
So I'm not sure if you picked it up, but I hope the voice was connected and you could hear it. But if not, let me know. I'll try to share again. Here's the output, what I got. I asked it to translate mother to Russian. And since I have Russian installed on my machine, it picked it up. If I didn't have Russian on my machine, that would fail really bad. So if you want to do something similar to what I did here, definitely make sure that you have tries and catches and actually have a workaround. But what we can see is pretty much output from Louis. Oh, it recognized a couple of entities, recognized the target language, recognized the text with the score here, and intent translate with the score. So it's pretty confident, but I have really simple Louis model there. So it's not really complicated to recognize the intent if it's only one intent. And if I actually trained it a couple of times and tried it and made sure that it will recognize it. But you can always go back and retrain your LUIS, republish it, get all the information that you need, and make your model better. So my console doesn't support Russian, but that's supposed to be in Russian. Just trust me. Okay, let me stop that. Because I have a couple of other things that I would like to show, and I would also like to leave some time for questions. So, okay, for that setup, we need a special configuration. I'm gonna just do that. So here I want to show you, oh, actually I don't need the config, but yeah, whatever. For some functionality there, you need the config. For other, you don't really need it. But so here I am recognizing language, also using speech services. Let me actually go there. Here I have that setup. So it's you might wonder, okay, you don't use the config, but then how you connect into the service. There is a config, just a little different. So I decided to set up here, and it's definitely not an example of how to write code. So don't copy it from here. It is just to show you how it all works. Here I'm just grabbing the speech endpoint, which I have in my configuration, and then text-to-speech key. Since I created all separate resources separately, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, then I use that specific key. But if you created one resource, then it's just one key for everything. And here I am listing the languages that are possible for speech service to recognize. You might write several of those, and that's a tricky part. It will detect languages from that list, and if there is a language which is not in the list, then unfortunately it won't be recognized. So make sure that you are covering all languages that might be used. But if not, then you definitely have some kind of error or warning that it is actually processed. You are not just, returning some kind of service error there. It is wrapped in try and catch. And I don't do it here because it's, again, just for the demo purposes to show you how it works. We are, again, creating the speech recognizer using speech config, and then the list of the languages, and then the audio config. I'm using the default speaker output, but you might want to use something else depending on what kind of application you build in, where it's going to run, and what is more convenient for your customers. And so I am recognizing just once, so it will be just one phrase, but you can do continuous recognition there. So it will recognize a presentation. It will recognize if you switch languages back and forth. So definitely play more with that. I am using just once because it's quick and dirty, but totally up to you. And then we are getting the results here. It's all asynchronous. Detecting the language, and then I am returning that that text got recognized in that specific language. Since I am a native Russian speaker, so I want to try Russian there. And I hope yes, I uncommented this stuff, so that should work. Let me try it. Всем привет! So see, the tricky part, it didn't recognize because I wanted to try something different this time, and the Russian phrase that I said, it was actually hi to everyone. It recognized it in this way. So if you see a lot of those issues, then maybe you need to think about customizing your speech service so it recognizes better. Let me actually try something else so I can show you better. Переведи мама на английский. Okay, so again, my console doesn't support Russian, so you can see it in this way, but if you spend a little more time figuring that thing out, then actually, you know, because Russian is using Cyrillic, that's different. I should have probably installed a couple of things there in order for that to work, but that's Russian. Let's assume it's Russian. It recognizes it's Russian, so that worked. Okay, I know we are running out of time. I have two more things here, but they are available on my GitHub. And feel free to reach out to me through Twitter, through LinkedIn, and I'll be able to point you to some tricks and tips there, or check my GitHub and see the rest of this demo, because now I want to leave a couple of minutes just to answer your questions. So what kind of questions do we have?
You guys can come off mute or raise your hand or just type it in the chat box, however you want. There's a couple at the top that started at 12:24, Veronika.
Okay, I see. I can see. So does bot and form services are included with cognitive services? So that's a separate topic. Bot is completely separate. Form recognizer is part of cognitive services. I think they are moving it to applied AI, so I'm not sure how it's gonna work, but definitely check the documentation there. It's not really related to speech services. And then what happens when the intent and intensity of the speech is a bit sarcastic? How it will project the answer? Yeah, so it depends what kind of models you're using. If you are using Lewis, then in order to recognize the intent, then you might be able to tweak it there. If you're using Q&A Maker, then it's a little different there. You can set up different, basically cheat chat functionality. So it is not related to speech directly, because speech itself doesn't recognize the intent. It can all transcribe it to text as is. If you are talking about translation, then I'm pretty sure it's going to be just one-to-one. It's not going to change anything or update or assume anything, because that's not the purpose of the speech service. It's even more so of LUIS, Language Understanding Intelligence Service, to understand what your user actually meant by whatever they said. Okay.
Looks like it's any more questions for Veronika? Hey, great presentation, Veronika. I'm going to go ahead and stop record. Thank you for giving your time to the community. I think we talked about last week how like, oh, these virtual events, the community's kind of, tepid on them in terms of attendance, but we got great attendance today and your session was great. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording and get this thing up on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.